Hello, everyone. Good evening. I see some people still visiting. That's what happens when you haven't seen each other for 3 years, or 4 years by some counts. I think it would be nice if you all move forward a little bit, don't you think? I want to be able to see all of your faces. At least I'm going to try to do so. Please move forward. Trust me, I don't bite. Thank you. For those of you coming in, please move forward. It's nice to see this chairs here full, as opposed to seeing all of you all the way back. Thank you so much. Good evening. Again. Please take your seats. I am Omogbai, Executive Director and CEO of CAA. On behalf of the Board of Directors, staff, and CAA members, welcome to the College Art Association's 111th Annual Conference. I couldn't be more delighted to be here in this room with you, live and in person. Having joined CAA in March 2020, there are so many of you I've never had the pleasure to meet outside of a virtual environment. And I'm so happy that after nearly 3 years, we can finally do so now. To those of you, thank you. To those of you attending via live stream, this is a first for us as well. So I remain excited and optimistic that we will meet in person, hopefully very soon. First, I would like to acknowledge that this year's conference is being held on the traditional lands of the Lenape people. The Lenape are diasporic people who remain closely connected to this land and are its rightful stewards. And I'd like to pay respects to Lenape elders, both past and present. I'd also like to acknowledge the sponsors that have made this year's in-person convening possible. Artists' Rights Society, Rutledge, Taylor and Francis, Blake Art Materials, Rachel Potento, University of California Press, Intellect Books and Journals, and of course, the numerous contributions of CA members, conference participants, and our service providers. I am particularly happy to report that these contributions have allowed CA to fund 100% of all the member support and registration grant applications we received for this conference. Convocation is the official kickoff of the CA Annual Conference and Annual Business Meeting. The goals for this conference were set by you, our members. 1, to convene in person with the most active members of our global community of scholars, artists, designers, museum professionals who represent varied specializations in the visual arts, but with a smaller, more potent conference format. 2, to have a virtual component to maximize participation for those who could not travel and to expand engagement with our global constituency. 3, to take fundamental steps toward maximizing opportunities for organizational sustainability through responsible use of our resources and community. And 4, to continue to activate CAA's overarching mission to address issues in the field relating to diversity, equity, and accessibility for our constituents and a global audience. The content of this year's annual conference reflects the considerable scholarship and ongoing practice of CAA members and amplifies contemporary issues in the field. The exploration and interrogation of previously marginalized terrains in art history and art practice at the global level has emerged as the core of this conference, marked by an uptick in international submissions from the fields of design, photography, and digital and new media, submissions by women and women-identified artists, and an increase of queer, Latinx, race, and healing subject matters. As we actualize CAA's global reach and actively work to dismantle gatekeeping in collaboration with our annual conference committee and Council of Readers, the 2023 conference content demonstrates that the organization changing and repositioning for the future converges with the cutting edge of art and scholarship. I am pleased to announce the recipients of the CAA 2023 Awards for Distinction. With these awards, CAA honors the achievements of those who have made incredible contributions to the visual arts field. The Art Journal Award is presented to Emily Boone for When Images in Haiti Fell, the photograph of Charlemagne Peralty, which appeared in the Winter 2022 issue. The Alfred H. Barr Jr. Award is presented to authors of an especially distinguished catalog in the history of art. This year's recipients are Julia Buitenshaw, Hector Garcia Botero, Diana Magaloni, and Maria Alicia Uribe Villegas for the Portable Universe, El Universo, and Tus Manos, Thought and Splendor of Indigenous Colombia, Delmonico Books, and Los Angeles County Museum of Art, 2022. The Frank Jewett Mather Award for Art of Criticism is presented to Eduardo Cadaver for the book Paper Graveyards, published by MIT Press in 2021. The Charles Rufus Murray Book Award is presented to Sylvia Hartling for the Art of Cloth in Mughal, India, Princeton University Press, 2022. The Arthur Kingsley Potter Prize has been awarded to 2 authors. One is Thomas Grusicki for Doublethink, Polished Carpets in Transcultural Contexts for his article in Art Bulletin in September 2022. The second Potter Prize goes to Hugo Shakeshaft for Beauty, Guts, and Early Greek Art, The Dedications of Mantinclos and Nicandre Revisited, which appeared in the Art Bulletin in September and May of 2022. This year's Artist Award for a distinguished body of works is presented to photographer Daoud Bey. His photographic career spans 4 decades and begins in 1975 with his seminal 5-year portrait of everyday life, Harlem, USA. His work has recently traveled in retrospective titled An American Project, co-organized by the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art and the Whitney Museum of Art. The CAA AIC Award for Distinction in Scholarship and Conservation is presented to Michelle Marincola and Lucretia Cagier, who are recognized by conservators, curators, and art historians for their contributions to the study of European sculpture. Their recent joint publication titled The Conservation of Medieval Polychrome Wood Sculpture, History, Theory, Practice is a major contribution to the field and represents 2 decades of collaborative work. The Distinguished Artist Award for Lifetime Achievement is presented to Barbara Kruger, whose distinct artistic practice has palpably shaped the broader social, cultural, and the field of visual art for decades. Best known for her works with bold, declarative statements overlaid with appropriated black and white imagery, Kruger interrogates mass media and consumer culture's effect on how we see and understand ourselves. The Distinguished Lifetime Achievement Award for Writing on Art is presented to Svetlana Alpers and Griselda Pollock, renowned for her groundbreaking work on Dutch Golden Age painting. Svetlana Alpers' writings have had a profound impact on the field of art history. Her book, The Art of Describing, has long been required reading, and she continues to write about a diversity of topics, from Tiepolo to Walker Evans, while also redressing art historical practices. Griselda Pollock's work have had a profound impact on feminist art history and cultural analysis, from old mistresses, women, art, and ideology, and the wide-ranging vision and differences to more recent work on transdisciplinarity and trauma. The Distinguished Teaching of Art Award, so many distinguished teaching art people here, recognizes Mary Loom, an accomplished visual artist who has been a professor of painting and drawing at Bedington College since 2005, and before that taught at the New York State College of Ceramics at Alfred University. This year's Distinguished Feminist Award goes to Nalini Malani and Marsha Meskiman. Nalini Malani's work has been recognized with solo exhibitions at over 30 international institutions. Malani has turned her unflinching eye to the ways in women's bodies have been used as pawns in political games, with a special focus on partition. Marsha Meskiman is a professor of art history and studies, who studies, teaches, and writes on global feminisms. Her groundbreaking scholarly work has been matched by a commitment to promoting and mentoring women in the field. She models an interdisciplinary and collaborative idea of feminism rather than a static theory that spreads from the North Atlantic out to the world. And finally, the Excellence in Diversity Award is presented to Aline M. Davir at New York University. She is the founding director of Latinx, the Latinx Project, which is an interdisciplinary space focusing on U.S. Latinx art, culture, and scholarship, which functions as a platform fostering critical public programming. Professor Davila also has published extensively of public imagery and cultural politics. I want to seize this opportunity here in person with you tonight to update you on the progress made over the last year since we last met virtually. But I'll be remiss if I don't first acknowledge the very tangible member services challenges many of you experienced over the past few months leading up to this conference. When I joined CAA during the pandemic in 2020, we embarked on an ambitious plan to sustain the organization. The plan required building infrastructure that would position us to meet the dynamic 21st century needs of our global visual arts community. Central to this plan was getting to know you, our constituents, understanding how and why you engage with us, and making changes accordingly to increase responsiveness to our member needs. There have been many obstacles over the past 3 years, and we've experienced undeniable growing pains. Familiar to some of you, funding challenges together with staff transitions during the past year have left CAA short-staffed and severely strained our ability to deliver the quality of services we know you, our members, deserve and that we had hoped to be able to provide. Although the staff has done a phenomenal job juggling the increases in duties under these difficult circumstances, we recognize that sometimes we have not met your expectations. Our commitment to you is one of continuous learning and improvement, characteristic of a 21st century responsive and thriving membership organization, especially in light of the landscape of academia, a lot of which you'll be hearing about tonight, and which so many of you have experienced, and of the visual arts, as you'll be hearing and seeing during sessions at this conference over the next 3 days. The silver lining, though, of all we have experienced with this funding struggles and subsequent pause of our digital transformation and our resulting member service issues is that this provides an opportunity for a comprehensive reset, an overhaul of how CAA service members on the most basic and fundamental level. You have my sincerest gratitude for bearing with us after being here tonight, despite these challenges. You have my commitment that we'll continue to work to prioritize addressing these issues so we can rebuild a membership support system that will serve your evolving needs. Change is hard, but we have the resolve to turn your pain into our purpose. Built into the foundation of our strategic plan was room to learn, recalibrate, and grow. With the decreasing number of tenure-track positions, you told us that you are interested in more professional development opportunities and exploration of additional career options. We heard you. 1, we launched a scholarship program. In 2022, CAA partnered with a long-term annual conference sponsor, Golden Artists, to launch the CAA Golden Scholarship Program, funded by Golden Artists Scholars Incorporated. CAA will grant 2 unrestricted scholarships annually to artists pursuing a career in K-12 education. This partnership targets constituencies that were previously underserved at CAA, including but not limited to those searching for alternative career options outside of the university system, and funding underserved rural and urban populations. 2, we created a fellowship program. Also this past year, thanks to the incredible generosity of Michael Erberg, who served as CAA's president from 2002 to 2004, CAA established the Michael Erberg Fellowship for Excellence in Visual Arts, created to recognize and honor CAA members who have obtained an MFA or equivalent and are currently teaching college-level studio art classes. The purpose is to support artist members as they fulfill their goals as visual arts professionals and thus addresses the needs of another underserved constituency. With Michael's help, we've been able to attract brand new CAA members, and we have had an unprecedented number of applications for a fellowship in its inaugural year. The first ever recipient of the Michael Oerbuck Fellowship for Excellence in Visual Arts is Lauren Sandler, Associate Professor and Program Head of Ceramics at the Tyler College of Art and Architecture at Temple University. Congratulations to Lauren, and thank you. And honorable mentions: Ellen Wetmore, University of Massachusetts; Lowell Allison Weiss, University of San Diego; and Zoe Vance, Temple University. Three, we facilitated the digital availability of a seminal art history book. This year, CAA lifetime member Jonathan Feinberg's gift in kind of the third and latest English language edition of Art Since 1940, Strategies of Being, enabled CAA to host this book for free through our website. This gift came at a moment when we are actively working to attract undergraduate members and also expand economic accessibility to CAA. This free book is available to download for all via CAA's website, but has particularly benefited economically challenged undergraduates taking courses that require the book. Four, we recognized and celebrated CAA pioneers while looking toward the future. In September, we hosted the CAA 50th anniversary celebration of feminism and art at Boston University's Joan and Edgar Booth Theater. This program reflected on the incredible history of CAA's feminist pioneers while looking toward a more inclusive, equitable future. The event reaffirmed our commitment to ensuring the critical work at the intersection of art and feminism continues this moment of precarity for women's rights. Thanks again to CAA's feminist pioneers, to the Feminism 50 Honorary Committee, the CAA Committee on Women in the Arts, the CAA Development Committee, the Board of Directors, Boston University, and various donors and streamlining partners for making this momentous event possible. We must continue to celebrate the accomplishments of CAA pioneers, one of whom I was delighted to greet here. Judy, I don't mean to embarrass you, but Judy is right there. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize the incredible work she has done and continues to do. Judy, you inspire me. And five, we've continued CAA's leadership in the fair use space. CAA filed an amicus brief with the Supreme Court of the United States as a supporting petitioner with the Andy Warhol Foundation, Robert Rauschenberg Foundation, and Roy Lichtenstein Foundation, Joan Mitchell Foundation, and the Brooklyn Museum, seeking to support the balance copyright law has traditionally struck between protecting copyrighted material and allowing others to build upon it. The brief supports the statutory fair use defense, maintaining that balance, allowing a new work to draw on an older one when the result is transformative. Six, we continue to increase CAA's advocacy efforts. As you all know, advocacy remains central to our mission, given threats to scholarships and artists globally, as does international expansion and systemic approaches to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Recent advocacy works include 1, statement on the Hamline University termination of Dr. Erica Lopez Prater. CAA also issued a joint statement with the National Coalition Against Censorship sent to Hamline University's president. And I'm delighted to say, as of yesterday, we got direct response from the president about ways they are redressing the matter and have requested public comment on that subject. CAA signed on a statement issued by the Middle East Studies Association in support of protesters in Iran. CAA also, together with several other academic societies, signed on to an ACLS statement condemning the brutal murder of Tyre Nichols. Just last week, CAA issued a joint letter with the National Coalition Against Censorship regarding the Arkansas Tech University exhibition, where an artist was pressured to pull their work due to claims of racism. And our 7th advocacy work, we work to strengthen our partnerships with our affiliates. In October, we partnered with 2 of our European affiliates, the Design History Society based in the United Kingdom and the International Association of World and Image Studies based in France, to produce a virtual symposium entitled Global Conversations, Materiality, and Mediation, exploring the intersection of materiality and mediation and representing several areas of interest across CAA's constituencies, notably art, design, and word and image studies. At its heart, this program embodied so many of CAA's goals for the coming years: expanding global programming and global reach, deepening our relationships with affiliated societies, and finding new and exciting opportunities for collaboration by creating year-round programming that fosters intellectual and artistic exchanges beyond the confines of the annual conference. I'm so pleased to report that 2 new affiliated societies have joined CAA. The Institute for Studies on Latin American Art, ISLA, offers public programming that includes exhibition talks and lectures hosted in partnership with universities and academic panels that advance scholarship and public engagement with art from Latin America. Their mission aligns with CAA goals of cultivating a global constituency, providing members with programs that meet their needs regardless of geographic boundaries. Indigo Arts Alliance, our newest affiliate, is a Black-led organization located in Portland, Maine, committed to empowering visual artists of color and transforming community via artistic residencies and fellowships. Their founders believe visual artists are well-positioned to engage in profound, impactful social justice work, and their ultimate mission is to achieve equity for Black and brown artists globally. These 2 affiliated societies embody where we need to go as an organization to be truly all-inclusive. 8, we have made strides to expand diversity, equity, and inclusion, which remains a priority and must guide everything we do as an organization, as it has been the value of CAA for over a century. In October of 2021, I was invited along with 2 CAA scholars to participate in the ACLS Intention Foundry Program, thanks to a generous $2 million grant from the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. This program equips the American Council of Learned Societies, that is ACLS, to advance equity and diversity through collaboration among our ecosystem's triangular network of stakeholders: scholars of color across the humanities, ACLS Learned Society executive directors, and thought leaders in higher education. A key priority in developing this intention foundry program was having program scholars who know better than anyone the obstacles they face, take a leading role in setting the agenda for advancing anti-racism, equity, and justice in their fields and institutions. Until now, the identity of these two scholars I selected was confidential. But I'm pleased to lift that lid of secrecy by acknowledging today that emerging professional board member Kelvin Purnell Jr. and CAA Services to Artists Committee co-chair Javon Chevy Peters, both individuals are incredible scholars who have done vital work over the past year on behalf of CAA. Inclusivity and accessibility and responsiveness are paramount to our progress and ultimate success as an organization, and for the first time in our history, by virtue of the work we've done to overhaul CAA's membership structure and begin transforming our digital infrastructure, members now have the ability to log into their MyCAA accounts and self-identify. While providing us with your demographic information is completely optional, please note that collecting this information from our members enhances our ability to respond to your needs tenfold and eventually provide a bespoke member journey to each and every one of you, tailoring programs, initiatives, and membership benefits to your specific needs is our ultimate goal. In addition to advocacy efforts that reflect and support your needs, but we do need your input to do so. Please log into your member portal and self-identify. That is the only way we can truly get to know what you want and need and why you prioritize your membership at CAA. We still have a great deal of work to do as an organization, but the expansion of year-round programming and new partnerships aligned with CAA's mission and repositioning renewed my faith that there is light on the horizon. When I say CAA must sustain in the 21st century, I think what often comes to mind is our digital transformation, which of course we do need. We need them in order to build an infrastructure that not only meets increasing technical demands, but also the expectation of our members. Also, what comes to mind is funding to sustain us. And yes, we do need those funds. We have so many ideas for partnerships and year-round programming, co-produced, for example, by affiliated societies, but we do need the funding to do it. However, what often gets lost in the messaging is that the most important thing for sustaining CAA in the 21st century is responsiveness to all of your needs, our constituents. That is the CAA I envision for our future. A CAA that, despite the tumultuous landscape of academia and the visual arts, can keep up with and remain nimble in the face of changing wants and needs of our members, and continue to be responsive regardless of those changes. So, consider this my renewed commitment to productive dialogue with our members to better understand your evolving needs, recalibrate our professional association to meet those needs in our continuous service to you. So once again, I say thank you for sticking with us. Thank you. And now, I would like to introduce the president of CAA's Board of Directors, Dr. Jennifer Rissler. Before becoming president this past May, Dr. Rissler served as CAA's VP for External Relations and as chair of the Committee on Women in the Arts. As you will hear in her moving video before she comes to the stage, Dr. Rissler is Dean Emerita, formerly VP and Dean of Academic Affairs at the San Francisco Art Institute.
Good evening, and welcome to the 111th Annual Conference and Convocation of the College Art Association. I'm Dr. Jennifer Rissler, President of CAA's Board of Directors. As you can gather from this pre-recorded video, I join you this evening from the former campus of the San Francisco Art Institute. Until June 30th, 2022, I was the Vice President and Dean of Academic Affairs at SFAI. For 151 years, SFAI was a vibrant part of the Bay Area's arts ecosystem. After an unfortunate failed merger, SFAI ceased its degree programs in July 2022. I am now Dean Emerita of the storied institution and join you from a shuttered campus that was, until recently, teeming with artistic and scholarly activities, building on its important legacy of creative experimentation. As our CAA membership consists of artists, art historians, designers, faculty members, college administrators, and curators, the closure of SFAI is an example of how tentative the current higher education landscape is, and how, as an organization, CAA's strategic repositioning aims to bolster support of our membership against such a trend. As we enter our third year of our strategic plan, CAA, as the preeminent international leadership organization in the visual arts, must now address such systemic trends that have deeply impacted our core constituencies and higher education in the 21st century. To achieve this, we are actively building on our foundational values of inclusivity and equity, and through a commitment to the underserved. CAA remains committed to our high standards of scholarship and publication, supports artistic expression and fair use, while advocating for diversity and inclusion of scholars, practitioners, and all those within the communities we serve. SFAI is situated on the ancestral, unceded lands of the Ohlone peoples. I recognize this institution's place on Native lands, and I confirm my responsibility to heighten Indigenous voices, standing together with local Indigenous communities and respecting local Indigenous traditions. I join with others who advocate for increased public awareness of Native sovereignty and rights. SFAI is located on the slope of Chestnut Street in the Russian Hill neighborhood. Its main campus overlooks the neighborhoods of North Beach and Telegraph Hill. Treasure Island and even Berkeley are visible across the bay. As a fitting location for observing the sacred ground of Alcatraz, the site of Native American occupation movements in the early 1970s, SFAI fostered critical engagement with our surroundings, championing an educated and engaged citizenry of students, faculty, and SFAI's vast community. While without question, SFAI's geographical location is crucial to understanding its history, it is the people associated with SFAI who shaped the imprint of the school since its founding in 1871. I share some of this institutional history with you this evening, with archival images preserved within the newly formed San Francisco Art Institute Legacy Foundation and Archives, histories that many CAA members have used within their scholarship. While this is a personal testimony to SFAI's important legacy, I also offer it as a clarion call to counteract the current climate of institutional and departmental closures that affect so many of our members. The long list of SFAI's community members during its 151-year history includes people drawn to art, its history, and the compulsion to create the new through experimentation. A prominent example is the artist Edward Muybridge, who in 1880 screened at the school what has been considered perhaps the world's first moving picture, illustrating that a horse's four hooves do indeed come off the ground while galloping. Former student Sergeant Johnson became a supervisor of the notable 1930s-era Works Progress Administration projects. He is well known for his New Deal art projects at San Francisco's George Washington High School and the Aquatic Park in Fisherman's Wharf. His seminal piece, Forever Free, is in the permanent collection at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. SFAI's photography department, the first in the nation to consider the photographic medium as fine art, was founded by Ansel Adams in the early 1940s. He would be joined by other artists who served as faculty members in the department, including Edward Weston and Minor White, as well as Dorothea Lange and Imogen Cunningham, seen here at the 1969 campus exhibition, USA in Your Heart, with Ruth Asawa. Mark Rothko taught at SFAI in 1947 and 1949, teaching both painting and contemporary art history courses. His 1943 work, Slow Swirl at the Edge of the Sea, was rendered once again on one of his class rosters from 1947 and remains an important part of SFAI's archives. His teaching tenure at SFAI foreshadowed what are considered his more established works from 1950 onward. Joan Brown, the subject of a current retrospective at SF MoMA, began as an SFAI student at the impressionable age of 17. Her paintings had both a maturity that belied her age and an immediate impact shortly after her arrival, as indicated by her work gracing an early art forum cover in June 1963. Angela Davis, known for her engagement with the Black Liberation Movement, taught in the liberal arts department from the 1970s to the early 1990s. She is seen here as part of a 1981 interview with the student newspaper, The Toot. Writer and poet Kathy Acker taught in both the humanities and the new genres departments. Art critic and poet Bill Berkson, seen here in front of Jay DeFeo's The Rose, which was housed on campus for years, taught infamous art writing seminars over the various summer sessions. In 1976, painting faculty member and SFAI alumnus Carlos Villa organized an exhibition on campus introducing multiculturalism to the Bay Area art world, titled Other Sources, an American Essay. This exhibition would later inform his Worlds in Collision pedagogy and his efforts to rehistoricize abstract expressionism to include women and artists of color. Last year, his retrospective, also titled Worlds in Collision, was exhibited at the Newark Museum of Art, the San Francisco Arts Commission Gallery, and the Asian Art Museum. Had SFAI survived, his retrospective would have been shown on campus as a fitting, posthumous homecoming he so richly deserved. A catalog was published with the University of California Press, which includes important scholarly contributions from several CAA members. SFAI created one of the first performance and video art programs in the country, founded by artist Howard Freed in 1970, seen here at his Berkeley Art Museum exhibition, All My Dirty Blue Clothes. The department became the New Genres Department, dedicated to conceptual art practice. Notable New Genres alumni include Karen Finley and Miguel Calderon, whose current survey, Aesthetic Material Available, seen here, is on view at the Museo Tamayo in Mexico City. SFAI's alumni have national and international recognition, including Karen Topakian, the instigator of the Resist protests during the 2016 presidential inaugural, who became the chair of Greenpeace and the subject of a short film, Arrested Again. Catherine Bigelow, the first woman to win an Academy Award for Best Picture and Best Director for her 2010 film, The Hurt Locker, was a painting major at SFAI. Laura Poitras, whose current film, All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, won the 79th Venice International Film Festival's Golden Lion Award, also is an SFAI alumna. Perhaps the most notable alumnus in recent history is Kehinde Wiley, who received his BFA from SFAI and was the painter of President Barack Obama's portrait in 2018. Even shuttered during the pandemic, SFAI continued to be a site of activism and social justice. This image from the 2020 election night is taken from a projection on SFAI's iconic tower. This work, done by the collective the Center for Creative Activism, includes SFAI alumni Jessica Tully and Steve Lambert, and is a lasting testament to SFAI's 151-year-long legacy of of educating a critically engaged student body. Thank you. Thank you, and good evening. It is a pleasure to address you for the first time as President of the College Art Association's Board of Directors. As I conclude my first year, I deliver a message of unity, reinforcing our collective strengths as members of CAA, which is needed against a cultural backdrop of divisiveness, dangerous rhetoric, and hollow binaries. Like each of you, I have my own personal and unique trajectory, both as a CAA member and in my professional career. As you have seen through my pre-recorded video, much of that recent history is painful. When I spoke with Meme about my desire to pre-record a portion of my remarks from SFAI Shuttered Campus, she reminded me that there is power in turning pain to purpose. I took that feedback to heart, and the very idea of purposefulness permeates my remarks and indeed my belief in CAA's long-standing forward advancement of its mission. And as fellow aesthetes, I thank you for allowing me the space to offer a visual elegy to SFAI. Although it closed after a long and valorous fight to stay alive, my hope is that together, through the mission and values CAA both champions and embodies, we can shift the tides and prevent other schools and departments from meeting the same fate. On Friday, I will join several colleagues on a panel to discuss mergers and identify ways to prevent subsequent closures, which negatively impact our members. However, the threat of closures and budget cuts are only two examples of the dangers facing higher education. The swirl of recent measures taken by state legislatures has created a political climate hostile to college and university missions and their commitment to viewpoint diversity, academic and intellectual freedom, and the freedom of expression, among others. Tenure remains under attack while universities and colleges continue to rely heavily on contingent faculty with limited pathways for our emerging scholars, practitioners, and graduate students, all of whom CAA serves. Central to CAA's mission is supporting the freedom of creative expression. Now more than ever, we must reaffirm our commitment to advance art and design, its scholarship and teaching. And together, I believe we can counteract the dangerous agendas of anti-woke and anti-critical race theory, which negatively affect who we teach and how we teach them. I remind us that we are stronger together through our CAA membership, and this evening I share with you several examples of our important work that is made possible by our members and constituents, but often is invisible. I offer this as a way to provide optimism in the face of the ongoing political interference in higher education. As we convene for the first time in person and in an emergent post-pandemic state, we do so within the lingering residue the pandemic left behind for our professions to confront and contest. In fact, I am reminded that Meme's tenure began in March 2020, at a time when learned societies like CAA were contemplating their futures and ways to future-proof their missions and support their members. At the same time, the American Council of Learned Societies created a white paper titled The Future of the Societies, which was written as the COVID-19 pandemic brought uncertainty to many. Their work foreshadowed many of the difficulties higher education would face, which I have outlined, as well as further losses of PhD programs in our fields, reduced undergraduate enrollments in the arts and humanities generally, and the devaluation of degrees within those fields. While this list of threats is daunting, the work of the futurists paved a roadmap for how learned societies such as CAA could respond, supporting their members through diverse initiatives. CAA's strategic repositioning plan that we are currently halfway through is informed by this framework and is a testament to Meme's forward visioning. I commend her and our CAA staff for this ongoing work so critical to our organization's survival. This week's conference is the preeminent example of the power of our scholarship and creative contributions to the field. I thank the annual conference committee, including Laura Anderson-Barbata, Vice President for the annual conference and programs, and Dr. Teresa Avila, Conference Program Chair, whose work alongside the CAA Programs Department selected the sessions and shaped the program of this year's annual conference. CAA's programming remains a place for intellectual, aesthetic, and professional learning and exchange, reflects the diverse interests of the membership, and provides opportunities for participation that are fair, equal, and balanced. Thank you also to our Council of Readers, who served a crucial role in the review process leading up to the conference. I encourage members to join the Council of Readers as our work on the 112th conference commences immediately following this year's convening. I am pleased to share that based on membership feedback, we have over 200 sessions in person and 30 virtual sessions this week. Recorded sessions will be available until April 17th. A special thank you to the Services to Artists Committee and their support of CAA's goal to seek broader participation by artists and designers in the organization. This year's annual artist interviews will feature Alaya Alba and Post Commodity. The scholarly and artistic contributions of those we honor this week are testaments to our fields, and I laud their achievements. CAA continues to advocate for our membership and the field. Last week, we signed on to a statement written by the ACLS in support of academic freedom and the new College of Florida. Recently, as Meme mentioned, CAA issued a statement to Hamline University leaders following the termination of Dr. Erica Lopez Prater, calling upon them to affirm their commitment to both the informed pedagogy that she demonstrated and the academic freedom to pursue truth that all professors should expect. As these examples illustrate, CAA speaks on behalf of a membership base that is facing increasingly precarious standards of employment. As we look to expand CAA programming outside of the annual conference, we do so with an eye towards strengthening our deliverables to members through increased contributed income. When I began my term as the Vice President for External Relations, I was tasked with establishing the first development committee for CAA. Working with Meme, CAA members, and CAA staff, we have been identifying additional revenue for the organization with a goal of enhancing programs and member services. While I have thanked several committees specifically, CAA's infrastructure is built upon 12 professional committees. I want to thank each and every committee member and acknowledge their significant contributions to CAA. And I invite you, our members, to apply for service on these committees to help us address crucial issues in the visual arts and propose solutions that advance CAA's goals and the profession as a whole. This is critically important work, and I thank the committee chairs for their ongoing stewardship of this collective engagement. CAA continues to uphold the highest standards of publishing through our peer-reviewed journals, including the Art Bulletin, the Art Journal Open, and CAA Reviews. The youngest of our publications, CAA Reviews, celebrates its 25th anniversary this year. As author Craig Hauser reminds us in The Eye, the Hand, and the Mind, the text devoted to CAA in its centennial year, in its short history, CAA Reviews has explored issues and ideas that are not being wholly addressed elsewhere in scholarly publishing, offering timely access to the intellectual and creative materials and issues of art historical, critical, curatorial, and studio practice. I thank all of our publication's editors, field editors, editorial board members, and publication members for their deep commitment to upholding the most rigorous standards of scholarly publication. Congratulations to CAA Reviews on this significant anniversary. Looking ahead, I call on our members to participate on committees and juries and to consider running for the board of directors. Diverse voices and experiences strengthen our collective work which purposefully drives our mission and our core values. CAA's board is composed of dedicated CAA members, each of whom is a professional in the visual arts. The board is charged with CAA's long-term financial stability and strategic direction, and it is also the association's governing body. I ran for president as a firm believer in shared governance. One of the most important ways to uphold this best practice is by voting for board members. As a CAA member, voting is the best way to shape the future of our professional organization. CAA members can cast their votes this week online until 5 p.m. on Thursday, February 16th. I will announce the new elected board members during the annual business meeting on Friday. I thank the nominating committee for their hard work in developing this year's slate. I also thank this year's outgoing board members who have devoted 4 years of tireless work on behalf of CAA. As we continue implementing CAA's strategic repositioning plan, I, alongside the entire board of directors, together with CAA's dedicated staff, are working to address organizational challenges for sustainability. We are doing so in full support of Executive Director and CEO Meme Omogbai and her ongoing stewardship in the face of unprecedented challenges for the visual arts community, and by extension for CAA, which I've outlined this evening. Departmental and institutional closures, including the closure of SFAI, which I shared, are two of several challenges facing our members. Provisional employment, loss of traditional career paths, and the need to identify alternative professional development options are real issues we must confront. We are cognizant of the need to better support members through our services, programs, and funding opportunities, and I, as president, will continue to work with Meme and the board of directors to be responsive to our various constituencies as we continually assess and refine our dynamic strategic plan. Against such a backdrop and ever-evolving nature of our challenges, I continue to see how resilient our members are, as is evidenced by this week's diverse session offerings. I invite you to enjoy the conference, and I look forward to meeting many of you this week. In closing, I met this evening's keynote speaker, Wesleyan University President Dr. Michael S. Roth, during his presidency of the California College of the Arts, when CCA and SFAI were considering a merger decades ago. Dr. Roth is informed both by his experience as a college president and also as a historian and scholar, experiences that no doubt will assist CAA in counteracting this increasingly fraught landscape of higher education. I thank him for his engagement with us tonight, and to introduce our keynote speaker, please welcome to the podium Laura Anderson Barbata, CAA's Vice President for the annual conference and programs. Thank you.
Buenas noches, good evening. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce Dr. Michael S. Roth, President of Wesleyan University, this year's keynote speaker for CAA's Convocation. Michael S. Roth, a Wesleyan University alumnus, became the 16th president of his alma mater in 2007. After having served as Hartley Burr Alexander Professor of Humanities at Scripps College, Associate Director of the Getty Research Institute, and President of the California College of the Arts. At Wesleyan, Roth has overseen the launch of such academic programs as the Albitron Center for the Study of Public Life and the Shapiro Center for Writing, as well as 4 new interdisciplinary colleges that emphasize advanced research and cohort building in the areas of the environment, film, East Asian studies, and integrative sciences. Under his leadership, Wesleyan experienced its most ambitious fundraising campaign in its history, raising more than $482 million, primarily for financial aid. Roth has undertaken several initiatives that have energized the curriculum and helped to make Wesleyan education more affordable and accessible to students from underrepresented groups, creating a supportive and diverse campus community that inspires students to achieve their personal best. Author and curator, most notably of the exhibition Sigmund Freud, Conflict and Culture at the Library of Congress, 1998 to 99, Roth regularly publishes essays, book reviews, and commentaries in the national media and in scholarly journals. He continues to teach undergraduate courses and has offered massive open online courses through Coursera, most recently, How to Change the World. We're counting on you, okay? Not much, right? But we're counting on you. Roth's newest book, Safe Enough Spaces, A Pragmatist Approach to Inclusion, Free Speech, and Political Correctness, published by Yale University Press, addresses some of the most contentious issues in American higher education, including affirmative action, safe spaces, and questions of free speech. His 2015 book, Beyond the University, Why Liberal Education Matters, published by Yale University Press, has been a powerful tool for students, their families, faculty, and policymakers who are wrestling with the future of higher education in America. It was recognized in 2016 with the American Association of Colleges and Universities Frederick W. Ness Award for a book that best illuminates the goals and practices of a contemporary liberal education. To summarize, I would like to read to you an excerpt from a review of Roth's Beyond the University, Why Liberal Education Matters, which was published in the Washington Post and written by Jay Matthews. High school counselors ask students their career goals when they guide their college choices. Michael S. Roth suggests that they also ask what kind of people do they want to be at work and at home for the rest of their lives. Vocations are important, but so are values, enthusiasms, and the ability to think critically about everything they encounter, not just problems at work. As a learned society, if we are to advance the highest standards of instruction, knowledge, and practice in the visual arts in order to stimulate intellectual curiosity and advance skills that enrich the individual and society, then the question, what kind of a person a student wants to be both at work and at home for the rest of their lives, is a question that we as artists, teachers, educators, and members of CAA must ask ourselves on a regular basis, because our continually evolving present and our future is a collaborative, inquiry-driven work in progress. Please join me in welcoming this evening's keynote speaker, Dr. Michael S. Roth. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. I know you've been sitting there for a while. You have a big conference. You're going to getting underway. Thank you for being patient. I'd like to just start off by, I guess I could say dedicating my remarks tonight to a CAA person who introduced me to this organization years ago. I'm a historian, I'm not an art historian, and so when Michael and Holly invited me to participate here and then to write for her, it was a great gift. She's not able to be here with us tonight. She's written very beautifully and powerfully, as many of you know, about melancholy in art history. And in the wake of this pandemic and in the wake of the conversation we just heard about SFAI and other threats, I thought a quotation from Mike Land might be appropriate for a start. Fear of losing that which is always already gone leads to a celebration of what remains. Indeed, she wrote, what other choice do we have? It's wonderful to be with you here at the College Art Association meetings in person, pretty cool. It's a huge room for the, some of you are so far away. I used to come here when I was the Associate Director of the Getty Research Institute, and then sometimes as President of California College of the Arts. When I came as a Getty person, I was extremely popular. I don't know if there are Getty people here, but I would walk around and people would come and say hello. I felt like I had like a jersey on it that said Getty. I didn't need that. My job at the Getty was to give away money. And so when I came to CAA meetings, everyone was so nice to me. And they would compliment my, I don't dress well or anything. And they would say, oh, you look great. You're so artistic, they'd say. And then I became the president of California College of Arts and Crafts, as we were called when I started. And, my job there was raising money and making payroll, really, for a while. I came to CAA, and nobody said hello or nothing. It was weird. So having the chance to be with you tonight is a treat. It's no news to this crowd that many art programs in towns and cities across the country are in crisis, as are many departments focused on the arts at colleges and universities. Many of us would also agree that we are facing a crisis of democracy, as polarization, inequality, and a breakdown of civic discourse poison the soil out of which democratic practices grow. Given these challenges, I've been arguing that liberal education matters more than ever. And I want to talk with you this evening about how the future of liberal education is bound up with the future of the arts. This is often expressed in the alliance of the arts and the humanities, though it is not limited to that. I founded a humanities institute at Scripps College in Claremont, which was, by the way, one of the first colleges to integrate studio classes into liberal education. And at that Humanities Institute, we did a fair amount of programming in the arts. But I was really impressed with the power of the alliance of the arts and the humanities when I worked with visiting scholars at the Getty. One year, our theme was the humanities in comparative historical perspective. The mission statement for that year dramatically asserted, quote, "Some see the humanities as the bearers of a culture's deepest values. Others see them as the elite field of overprotected specialists working on esoteric and irrelevant topics. What do the humanities teach? To whom? For what? How is that teaching related to what is taught by the arts?" End quote. It's more than 20 years ago, and I believe those questions that we raised then are as relevant as ever to the College Art Association and to American higher education more generally. The leadership team at the GRI, as we called it at the Getty, had a capacious view of what might be relevant to the arts and humanities in those years. And some of my colleagues in Los Angeles thought it was too broad. We worked with writers like August Wilson, organizations like Poetry in Motion, neuroscientists, musicologists, anthropologists, and of course, archaeologists, art historians, and artists. We welcomed Bill Viola with open arms, and also Lucille Clifton, Dick Rorty, Rhodessa Jones, Cliff Geertz. Traditional art historians found support there for their empirical work, and so did more political and experimental colleagues like Tim Clark or Mika Ball, or those who don't fit into any category like Ingrid Rowland, Barbara Stafford, Adrian Piper. We had a great time, and people learned from each other across differences. We were, and I have some former scholars here in the audience, I think we were seriously unconcerned with professional development. We were actually trying to learn. Those are not the same things. Not everybody was thrilled with that eclecticism. In a meeting with the Getty Museum, for whom I had profound respect, I curated an exhibition for their opening, and they were really great to work with. But at a meeting with them, I remember joking, saying, I need to leave to go to the bathroom, but I'm afraid to go because when I come back, the humanities might not be here. The director of the museum chuckled, and he said, why don't you go, and we'll find out. I stayed in the room. I didn't really have to. The Getty Museum was willing to join us in adventures in visual culture. And I, all joking aside, had the very good fortune to work with very, very generous directors like Salvatore Settis, Deborah Marrow, and Tom Crow. I left the Getty in 2000, and I'm still awed by the amazing work that its various units do. And around the time I left the Getty Research Institute, it was called the Research Institute for Art, History, and the Humanities. And my recollection is that they sandblasted the humanities off the stone tablet in front of the beautiful building. Maybe that was to make it more open, research into everything. But I do fear it's also related to an increase in specialization that afflicts arts organizations, humanities departments, and universities more generally. When I left the Getty, I had the great good fortune to become president, and I certainly didn't deserve to be president, of the CCAC, and now the California College of the Arts, almost now really in San Francisco, and then in Oakland and San Francisco. So I lost my attractiveness at CAA meetings, but I got to work with artists, designers, writers. I left a community of scholars and joined a community of makers. Our goal, and I worked hand in hand with Steve Beal, who's just announced his retirement from presidency there. He was provost when I was there. Our goal was to have education through the arts. There was an amazing amount of school spirit at CCA, as there was at SFAI. You know, you think about college spirit, school spirit, you think of sports and football teams. We didn't have sports teams at CCA. We did have a gender-fluid soccer team that posters said, have we got balls? And they attracted crowds. But we had an amazing exhibition program that functioned for us like athletic programs at other universities. And I learned a ton from curators like Ralph Rugoff, Matthew Higgs, Kate Fowl, Larry Rinder. The adventurous eclecticism of the GRI and CCA ran against the tide of academia's mania for certification and professionalization. I believe that this mania is a danger for arts education. Indeed, that arts education may be an effective medicine against this mania. And in my remaining time this evening, I want to talk to you about that. 2 dangers and 2 opportunities for the defense of the Arts-Humanities Alliance within a creative, pragmatic, liberal education. The first danger, the danger of specialization. Academics don't get stuck in silos by accident. Seeking professional status, we are incentivized to burrow deep. We become so accustomed to our own subdisciplinary netherworlds that we have trouble existing in anyone else's atmosphere. Professors who identify as members of departments often see no reason to act with colleagues from other fields. And so undergraduates have little hope of getting guidance from faculty about their education, their lives as a whole. Despite the commonplace rhetoric of interdisciplinarity, we academics seem all too content creating languages and cultures that are insular. Even in the visual arts, we have gotten all too adept at education as a form of narrowing, while what we really need is to provide students with artistic and cultural cross-training. As the social sciences and literary arts give in to specialization, can faculty in the arts become our communicators across a variety of fields. The arts, within the context of liberal education, should enhance abilities to translate across ideas and assumptions. But instead, we often see the spectacle of pointy-headed specialists, great at one thing, but not to be trusted beyond their small subfield. Of course, advanced research in any area requires rigorous work and real technical competence. But we must not confuse being a competent technician with being an artist or a teacher who can inspire students by translating complex visual issues into terms clearly relevant to pressing human concerns. In many ways, the two cultures division described in the middle of the last century has only grown more pronounced on many American campuses. The rush to STEM in higher education, and at many places they add economics comically to the STEM fields. That rush exacerbates the inability of students to relate to the arts. It certainly has reduced the investment in the arts and increased the feelings of beleaguered isolation that plague studio practices and those of us who study them. The solution is not, I think, to dig deeper into the well of discipline-specific inquiry. The solution is for the arts and humanities to become more adept at translating among disciplines, including STEM fields. Some of the most interesting work in art practices will come at the intersections of technology in the studio, and institutionally, deans, provosts, and even presidents should create structures that facilitate translation and exchange across these boundaries. It's my cousin. So that's the first danger. Second danger, populist parochialism. Just as on campuses we have gotten all too good at isolation through specialization, in the public sphere we have become experts at stimulating parochialism. New provincialisms and ethno-nationalisms are gaining force around the world thanks to fear-based politics. Orchestrated parochialism is antithetical to the arts within liberal learning, whether that be under the reactionary guise of defending national religious groups or under the so-called progressive guise of defending an essentialist version of minoritized identity. Both of these moves are efforts to categorize certain kinds of people as those from whom one has nothing to learn. By contrast, a pragmatic liberal education deepens one's ability to learn from people with whom one does not agree. Such an education should help one resist substituting demonization for curiosity. It should help us avoid the politics of resentment that is everywhere upon us. But does it? Writing people off with whom one disagrees will always be easier than listening carefully to their arguments or attending to their creative endeavors. Without tolerance and open-mindedness, inquiry can be at best just a path to self-congratulation, and at worst, violent scapegoating. It is especially urgent to advocate effectively for a broadly based, pragmatic liberal education when confronted by ignorant authoritarians who reject inquiry in favor of fear-mongering and prejudice. A broad education with a sense of history and cultural possibilities arms citizens against manipulation and allows them to see beyond allegiance to their own kind. But it would be a mistake to create oppositional solidarity on new forms of essentialism that replicate barriers for exchange and creativity. In other words, it would be a mistake to think that our own forms of cultural solidarity, radical as we may call them, aren't also forms of parochial elitism. An education in the arts should promote intellectual diversity in such ways that students are inspired to grapple with ideas, experiences, and aesthetic forms that they would never have considered on their own. At Wesleyan, bringing art practice into new programs in environmental studies and design and engineering has been invigorating for all concerned. Not long ago, an intrepid curator brought dozens of athletes to reflect on a contemporary photography show that was deconstructing masculinity. I don't think she told them that was what the show was. I think she just said it was a show about guys. And so we had all these athletes come over from the athletic center, and it was, I just remember Kathy Opie's work in the center of it. Unexpected conversations took place, even if we didn't create total fluency. People discovered stuff they never thought they would ever see or talk about. I imagine things like this are happening on many campuses. As we speak, at Wesleyan, Ilana Harris-Babu has an installation that looks at the history of breastfeeding as it has been narrativized, advertised, and sold to black mothers in America. It's called Liquid Gold, and it combines video and sculpture to be sure, but also science studies, economics, and African American studies. Along with allies in the sciences, and even sometimes in the administration, we must find more ways to make diverse groups on campus more likely to engage with one another, bursting the protective bubbles of ideas that lead many with different political views or different disciplinary affiliations, having only in common a commitment to being smug and self-righteous about how smart they are and how dumb their enemies are. Those are the dangers. Two possibilities. The first is the possibility for proactive, I would say even forceful openness. All around the country, museums, galleries, and other publicly facing arts organizations have stepped up their game in showing that the arts don't just belong to a privileged few. This is an important contribution that is now the baseline for so much of the work that goes on in the field. Curators and museum educators, artists, and craftspeople have consistently pushed back against barriers to the arts, often working closely with communities that had long been underserved. It is heartening to see the arts integrated more fully in everyday life. But of course, in the United States, integration into everyday life often means turning something into a commodity. The quickest way to take down barriers is to make art and talk about art in ways that are commercially viable. Going against the grain, though, and providing alternative critical perspective risks turning off audiences. This is an old problem. Successful openness may feel like selling out. Provocative opposition may feel like performative politics or mere elitism. We had fun with this dilemma in that when postmodernism meant something to people, but our ironic approach to it didn't really solve the issue. Curators and artists may now see this problem as the fear of losing audiences, either by boring them and saying that what they already know, or alternatively, by having them turned away with outrage or incomprehension. For those of us working at colleges and universities, proactive openness means going beyond our usual constituencies to speak to students and to faculty in disciplines that may seem to have little connection with the arts. On most campuses, there is an arts tribe, a reliable group of students and colleagues who await our programming, sign up for our classes. There is often real solidarity within the arts tribe, and it's a beautiful thing. You know, people dress more interestingly, they wear more facial jewelry, it's great. But in an age of STEM focus and the realignment of resources, university arts folks must open themselves, must seek out connections with other constituencies on campus. From econ majors to physicists, computer scientists to athletes, we must find ways to bring the arts to people who don't yet know they will love them. My last possibility, the possibilities of cosmopolitanism and community. My sense of pragmatic liberal education is agnostic about disciplines. I think you can teach anything within the context of liberal learning. Although that's the case, I find it all but impossible to imagine such an education without the arts. And this is the scary part of the situation we can see through SFAI and many other institutions around the country. The scary part, but all the resources flowing to people who are more and more isolated from what the arts can provide. Because if they don't experience the arts in college, the chances of them gaining that experience later is very, very small, I believe. A real education, and your university presidents and deans should say this en haute voix, they should really say this, a real education cannot exist without the arts. And it's so easy, like for a guy like me, I'm a university president, you can't have an education today without math, computer science. I mean, these things go out, people say this all the time. But I think your deans and your presidents can use their power and their bully pulpit to remind their students and their faculty that there is no real education without the arts. The arts within a college experience offer students the opportunity to leave their preconceptions behind, while also exploring the experiences and modes of expression of people very different from themselves. The arts within a liberal education offer opportunities to, quote, cultivate individuality in such ways as will enhance the individual's social sympathy, end quote. That's John Dewey. The arts depend on and nurture creative individuality, cosmopolitanism, and community, empowering individuals to take productive risks and encouraging them to develop what Dewey called practical idealism, has long been the hallmark of pragmatic liberal education. Cosmopolitanism helps us grow a culture of openness and curiosity, recognizing that people are, in Anthony Appiah's words, quote, entitled to the options they need to shape their lives in partnership with others. Shape their lives in partnership with others. Developing a creative community means seeding relations of trust that encourage experimentation and intellectual risk-taking. At healthy universities and colleges, professors and staff learn to care for the welfare of their students, and students learn to look out for one another. In dynamic educational environments, people are more willing to venture beyond their comfort zones because they have background assumptions of care and trust. And as they become more adept at intellectual and cultural translation, they deepen this trust while making those zones around them more porous. This doesn't just happen on its own. Faculty, teaching artists, and art historians can help cultivate an ecosystem of trust out of which creative work can emerge. Or they can do the opposite. They can teach students to be gifted at suspicion, to develop practices of condescension that tell them that they should be proud that they're in a small arts tribe and everybody else is a Philistine. This is the wrong way to go, as you can hear from my description of it. We don't want to teach our students to be adept at so-called critical thinking in ways that habituate them to always already be on a path to reduce trust. Whether acknowledged or not, the lessons of arts education are everywhere apparent in the modern university. We need to tease them out. We need to remind our colleagues of this. Project-based learning in all departments grows out of ideas that studio professors have long known. One learns through an active process, often a collaborative process, that is solidified through making. My biology department at Wesleyan runs on that premise, as our painting program at CCA did. The result is a college education that is human-centered, setting a framework for inquiry and exchange that will be a resource for graduates for the rest of their lives. In other words, as good old Dewey said, the arts are, quote, not luxuries of education. The arts are not luxuries of education, but emphatic expressions of that which makes any education worthwhile. For those of us committed to pragmatic liberal education, there are two fundamental goals of the university: to preserve culture and to stimulate inquiry for the sake of social progress. Of course, we will debate with one another about how much we should be preserving and what really counts as progress and for whom. My happy pragmatist view is those debates serve the very purposes of the university just described. We don't have to agree to make progress. In fact, I think we have to disagree to create the soil for progress. These university purposes are once again under extraordinary pressure, either from narrow specialization and its attendant vocationalism, or from politicians parochially pumping up hostility toward the vulnerable in their quest to preserve white supremacy and the domination of wealth. But the arts can be a locus of hopeful possibility as we imagine a broad, intense education instead of one dominated by machines tuned to predict how to best perpetuate the status quo. To paraphrase Dewey again, this locus of possibility offers us the most intimate and energetic means of aiding people to share in the arts of living. The arts of living. Civilization is uncivil, he wrote, because human beings are divided into non-communicating sects, races, nations, classes, and cliques. We turn to art practice and study to break down those artificial divisions and to open up possibilities of meaning and joy. What else can we do? I wish you all a joyful, meaningful conference. Thank you.
Let's hear it again for Michael. The arts can be a locus for possibility and hope. So I hope we'll remember that throughout the conference. Now, thank you, President Michael Roth, Dr. Jennifer Rissler, and Laura Amberson-Babado for joining us and for your inspiring remarks. Let's hear it for them again. Before we close tonight, I want to announce that at the end of February, and after 25 years of service on staff at CAA, Paul Skiff will be retiring. If you've been to CAA conferences, you know Paul Skiff. Paul's contributions to this organization are indelible. Paul was hired by former CAA Executive Director Susan Ball to professionalize production of the annual conference. He came to CAA with his BFA degree from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, an MFA degree from the Mason Gross School of the Arts at Rutgers University. Along with his credentials, Paul brought a solid background of producing cultural events. Before joining us, for nearly 10 years, Paul was assistant director to the manager of productions for the Olatunji Center, a pioneering cultural organization founded by a Nigerian musician and educator, M. Babatunde Olatunji. In that position, Paul produced events with sponsors such as the United Nations Hunger Project, Silver Foundation, Ontario Anti-Racist Secretariat, the African National Congress, universities, colleges, and many other globe-spanning cultural and educational organizations. Starting in November 1998, Paul was assistant director for annual conference and worked with former director of programs, Emmanuel Lemakis, until his retirement in 2017. Together, Paul and Emmanuel presided over growth of the conference in both program content and outreach to all regions populated by CAA's members. Paul evaluated conference locations, qualifying sites from Seattle to Los Angeles, Dallas to Boston, Philadelphia to Atlanta, and Washington, D.C. The conference grew during this period with innovative content and formats, art space, programs focusing on career development, practical workshops and roundtables, along with session content focused on history and practices of the local region, became regular elements of the conference. Leading visual arts organizations in each host city were eager to contribute substantial off-site events. City governments, bureaus themselves actively pursued CAA to bring a conference to town. On the event production side of the conference, Paul directed the Book and Trade Fair. His consistently productive work has earned CAA more than $7 million in exhibits, sponsors, and advertising support over this nearly quarter century. Paul initiated a category of exhibits specifically for entrepreneurial publishers, not-for-profit organizations, innovative art materials, student organizations, services for professionals in the visual arts and higher education. These organizations bring diversity along with the pulse of recent developments to the exhibits. In partnership with Mark Golden of Golden Paints and the late Goddess Jen of the Art Materials Information and Education Network, Paul initiated the exhibitor sessions, bringing unique professional content from the field directly to us. When the pandemic hit, Paul, along with other key staff, researched, designed, planned, and executed our first totally virtual conference. Paul completely transformed the conference book and trade fair in just 40 days from start to finish. From event design to marketing to implementation and operational direction. A feat of business and event production that would subdue most of us. Part of Paul's unseen work for the conference each year was his role in administering contracts and conference facilities. These contracts bring very significant financial liabilities with required quotas and commitments to fulfilling high levels of attendance. Over the span of his work at CAA, Paul has protected us from more than $10 million of possible liability. In 24 years, we have not had, not one time, even once, to pay a financial penalty to a conference facility or any hotel. Over the years at CAA, Paul played a key role in adapting to each new circumstance, from 9/11 through the Great Recession of 2008, with all the increased digital transformations of business in the face of dramatic structural changes within the professions of our constituents. He has kept us moving forward, adapting, and true to our core values. Paul's role in directing production of the annual conference, his concern for attendee experience, especially his talent for bringing together extremely diverse groups of production partners and constituents for the complex events, has resulted each year in this highly enjoyable and professionally rewarding event for all of our members and participants. And so, in honor of this quarter century of incredible work and dedication, CAA's 112th annual conference in Chicago will feature a new panel entitled the Paul Skeef Conversations. Paul will serve as guest curator and will focus on bringing new kinds of artists and thinkers to the table, as well as new audiences not previously presented at CAA conferences. Please join me in thanking Paul for all he has done for CAA. As I always say, you can visualize all you want, but it takes people, humans, to make it work. It takes people to give it life, and Paul is one of those very special people. Thank you again to conference sponsors, Artists' Rights Society, Roth, Taylor & Francis, Blake Art Materials, Rachel Potente, University of California Press and Intellect Books and Journals. And thank you to the various foundations who have supported CAA and continue to do so and partner with us. The J. Paul Getty Trust, Getty Foundation, the Cleveland Foundation, the National Committee for the History of Art, the Terra Foundation for American Art, the Mary Edwards Travel Grants, the Wyatt Foundation for American Arts, Emily Hall Tremaine Foundation, the Milton and Sally Avery Arts Foundation, and the Carl and Marilyn Thoma Art Foundation. And thank you to the CAA Annual Conference Committee, Conference Chair Teresa Avila, VP for Annual Conference Laura Anderson-Barbada, and the Council of Readers, and for helping to curate and deliver what I know will be a phenomenal conference. Thank you to CAA's 12 professional committees, the Publications Committee, and editorial boards for your invaluable contributions to our field. Thank you to the CAA's Board of Directors for your continued partnership and support as we move CAA forward. I'll also like to take this opportunity to remind CAA members to vote in the board elections. The voting form can be found on our website, and election results will be announced on Friday, as Jennifer indicated at our annual business meeting. Please make it a point to attend. I cannot express enough how important these elections are in terms of shaping the future of this organization we all love so much. Special thanks to CA VP for Diversity and Inclusion, Kelly, who designed this year's sustainable tote bags. If you haven't got yours, you need to visit registration and make sure you walk away with it. It's also part of our tribute to our climate crisis commitment, because you can reuse that tote bag over and over again at the same time as you proclaim your love to CAA to one and every. Thank you. My hardest thanks to the staff for pulling off this conference. We currently have a full-time staff of only 9, and to pull this off is no small feat. Thank you to Paul Scaife, Mira Freelandia. Mira is the lady with the mostest. Megan Donahue, and those of you who have ever called know her. Eugenia Bell, Kali Buckley, Abdul Mohammed, Scott Gerhard, Keith Simmons, and Allison Walters. So if you enjoyed this today, that was Allison. Your tenacity and commitment to CAA and its mission has made this conference possible, and I cannot thank you enough. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And of course, thank you to all our conference participants and attendees, as well as all of you here tonight, in person or via live stream. We hope you will join us for our other key events that will also be live streamed. The CAA's Distinguished Scholar Session honoring Dr. Edward J. Sullivan, and CAA's annual artist interviews featuring Elia Alba and Post Commodity. Check the conference app or our website for details. Above all, thank you to our members for your contributions to CAA. Your contributions make CAA possible, and for your service to the visual arts field. And on that note, I wish you a wonderful conference. Thank you. We don't have a formal question and answer session, but as we mosey on over here, I'm sure Michael will be glad to answer any questions that you are born in to ask him. Thank you.